Hello and welcome to another episode of Slash Ranks Random Shit. I am Slash Raptor. You can't see me because I'm hiding, because I am unshaven, in desperate need of a haircut, and really fat. And also it's hot, so I'm not wearing a shirt, and you don't want to see that. Unless you think you can handle it. But let me tell you, you can't handle it. So, in the last episode, we ranked the Generation 8 Pokemon from best to worst, or worst to best. Actually, we just went in alphabetical. We just went in like Pokedex order and then put them on the board. But now, for the final Pokemon-themed episode, until I take a break from Pokemon-themed episodes, we're going to be ranking all of the main series generation games of Pokemon. But as you can see, the things on the side here are different than the ones we were using in the Pokemon. So everything in the never played section doesn't score, because if I've never played the game, then I can't really rank it. So right off the bat, let's take out all the games that I've never actually played. I did not play Pokemon Black, and I did not play Pokemon White 2. I did not play Blue. I did not play Red. I did not play Ultra Sun. I did not play Moon. I did not play Alpha Sapphire. I did not play Gold, and I did not play Sapphire, and I did not play Y. Where are you here? Yeah, you're right there. Okay. I think that's it. Oh, and Pearl. I didn't play Pearl. Yeah, that looks good to me. Okay, so starting off in generational order, the very first Pokemon game that I ever had, and the only Gen 1 game I've ever played, was Pokemon Yellow. And it was alright. Compared to what Pokemon is like now, it was alright. It was actually an improved version of Red and Blue. Red and Blue had a lot of problems. So did all of Generation 1 did. But Yellow fixed a few of those problems, added a bit more Pokemon, and tried to follow the anime a bit more, as opposed to following the story of the original Red and Blue. And of course, it was upgraded to be in color, which was a pretty big deal at the time. I had a very fancy Game Boy. It was blue, and it had Pikachu on it. So it was blue. It was yellow and blue. Very first Pokemon game I ever had. And my best Pokemon was a level 100 Pidgeot and a level 84 Kadabra, because I didn't know how to evolve it at the time, and I didn't have friends who had the game, even if I did know how to evolve it. Oh, and yeah, I thought for a second that this was down here, but I remembered that I put it there for a reason. Alright, so moving on to Generation 2. Generation 2, my first game was Silver, and it was decent. I liked it quite a bit. Then I also had Crystal, and it was also decent. Generation 2 is a better game than Generation... The Generation 2 games are better than the Generation 1 games, but not in terms of, like, quality, because they added less to the game. Like, it was meant to be the final game in this series, but then the popularity convinced them to make more. So it kind of sort of continues the story of the Generation 1 games, and it expands on the world of both Kanto and Johto, which is next door. The fact that the different regions are like next door neighbors I thought was really interesting, and it made for very cool post-game. But a lot of the new Pokemon introduced in Generation 2 for some reason aren't even available until you get to Kanto. But if the Pokemon from Johto are exclusive to the Johto region, why can you find them in the Kanto region? And there was nothing really that stood out about Generation 2. It added a lot of cool features, like the day and night system, and how there were different days, and the breeding was in there for the first time, and it added the physical, and it split up the special stat, and it fixed a lot of the other glaring issues with Generation 1, but there was still a lot more room for improvement. So moving on to Generation 3, we have Ruby version, and I had that, and it is fantastic. Pokemon Generation 3 is, I think, my all-time favorite generation of Pokemon. It still had a lot more things to improve on, but it was such a huge upgrade from the Game Boy Color games that it was just incredible. Then I played Emerald, then I played Fire Red, and then I played Leaf Green. I love all of the Generation 3 games. They're easily my favorite Pokemon games of all time, and they ran at a glorious 60 frames per second. And that speed just, you can't beat that. Everything was fast paced and everything was moving perfectly. It was easy to control. It never lagged. You could get through everything really easily. The speed just worked so perfectly. The battles were better. The double battles, the region was interesting. I liked how they had the yin and yang thing going for the Hoenn region, and I liked how they had a different mascot for each one of the different things. Because if you liked Kyogre, then you were the ocean side, and if you liked the land side, then you went with Groudon, and then you also had Rayquaza, who was like the third one, and I liked how you had Team Aqua and Team Magma also representing the yin and yang, but the story wasn't really that great. It wasn't much better than Gold and Silver, but in terms of pure enjoyment, I think that without a doubt, I'm always going to be a Generation 3 boy. If some of the features that they introduced in later generations had been introduced in Generation 3, then I would probably say that the Generation 3 games are the perfect games. Probably the most notable ones would be the physical special split that didn't happen until Generation 4, and then in Generation 5, the change where they made TMs not break after one use. If both of those features were in the Generation 3 games, it would be fantastic. And there's a lot of mod hacks or ROM hacks that you can play on your emulator that introduce the new features but use engines from older games because it combines so much good stuff together. These 4 games right here are my favorite games in the entire thing, and I think that Fire Red and Leaf Green in particular are actually even more of my favorites than Ruby and Sapphire, just because I think that Fire Red and Leaf Green, it felt so refreshing when you compare what the original Generation 1 games could have been, and then you turn them into this. It was great, and I loved it. I loved it a lot. So, yeah, and again, 60 frames per second is a huge thing. All these 4 games here, well, technically, it would be 5 if you count Sapphire, but I didn't play Sapphire. I had Ruby, and then I went to Emerald, and then I had Fire Red, and then I also had Leaf Green. So, yeah, those 5 games are the only games in the series that ran entirely in 60 frames per second. So, going on to Generation 4, I had Diamond version, and it was very good. It hasn't aged very well at all, in my opinion, because it is so insanely slow. I don't understand how they were able to make a full-on Super Mario 64 remake on the DS and have it play pretty damn good, and then go to Pokemon where it doesn't really look that much better than the Game Boy games. Like, the models are a little bit more advanced, but it's still basically the same thing, and everything is just so slow. The battle is slow. Moving around is slow. Everything has been slowed down, and there were even routes in the Sinnoh region designed to slow you down even more, like in the Great Marsh or the snow level, and like everything was just so slow, and it made some parts of the game just feel like they were dragging on. But in other things, they did add a lot of interesting things to the game. The physical special split was a huge thing. Lots of great new Pokemon. The Sinnoh region is incredible. Yes, you need a shit ton of HMs to explore it, but if they remake those in the Generation 8 games, you won't need any HMs. Hopefully. I don't think that they're going to remove HMs and then you put them back into a game just because it's a remake of another game. Team Galactic was a definite improvement over the previous 2 evil teams, being Team Rocket and Team Magma / Team Aqua. But the story was pretty similar to the one from Ruby and Sapphire. It's just they explored the mythos of the Sinnoh region a bit more, and instead of 2 teams that were rivals, you had 1 team. But Cyrus was a downright evil son of a bitch, and he was pretty menacing for what he was. And I think it was kind of interesting how even after you beat him, he still was evil. He stopped his plans, and there's nothing else he can do. But he even leaves saying, "Look, I know I'm right about this. I might have lost this battle, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to make my world without emotions." I don't know how he managed to get a Crobat if he hates everything, but whatever. So yeah, Generation 4, despite how slow it is, there was a lot of great stuff in there, so it's very good. And then Platinum is basically the same game, so it'll go up here. Heart Gold will also go here. It's a remake of Gen 2, obviously. I played Heart Gold first, and then I played Soul Silver on an emulator. Again, all of the same speed problems exist in the remakes of Gen 2, but these remakes are very, very good remakes, and they added a lot more content. Unlike what they did with Fire Red and Leaf Green, where it was basically just from the ground up remakes with more powerful hardware, they added the Sevi Islands, and that's about it. But in this one, they added a whole bunch of new stuff in these remakes that they didn't add when they remade Gen 1. But again, it's still Gen 4. It's still really slow. They didn't really do a lot to make it stand out from the other Gen 4 games. And yeah, but they're still very good games. Moving on, we have Pokemon Black version, and I have Pokemon White version, and I thought Pokemon White was decent. In terms of like replayability, I don't think it's that great. Probably the best part about Pokemon Gen 5 was the story. And you could tell right from the beginning of the game that they wanted to focus more on the story because they actually had like opening credits and they had a prologue and they had like backstory with the characters and they had cutscenes and things. And I felt like the Generation 5 games had the perfect balance between gameplay and story progression. At no point did it feel like you were being bogged down with like a bunch of stories being being thrown in your face, and it never felt like it was holding your hand. You progressed through the game naturally, and the story was progressing at the same pace. And you had betrayal, and you had plot twists, and you had other things that they had never used before in any of the previous Pokemon games. And it's not necessarily a very good story, but compared to the other stuff in Pokemon, it was incredible compared to the other one. Ghetsis was a very interesting character, and was a very interesting character. Your two rivals were annoying, but they actually both developed alongside everybody else. So it was kind of interesting, and I liked how they made it like a soft reboot. That was a bold choice, but I personally think it paid off. The only thing I don't like about the Generation 5 games is the Unova region. I did not really like it. It was very linear. It didn't feel like there was much to see, and there wasn't really any side areas that had the same kind of long-lasting thing, and there wasn't much like backtracking either. Like you could basically just progress everywhere at the same time, and you were forced to go at a very specific path, and there was nothing about Unova that really just stood out and spoke to me. But they really seemed to like making bridges. There was like 5 or 6 big bridges, but it's just a bridge. And while the game is faster than the Generation 4 games, it still runs at 30 frames per second, but in battles it runs at 60. And I think that if they could make the battles run at 60, they could have made the overworld run at 60, but they didn't. Because for some reason, game developers don't understand that good graphics do not make a game good. Good gameplay makes a game good. Good graphics are just a nice addition. I would much rather play a game with an incredible gameplay and awesome high frame rate than a game that looks incredibly gorgeous but runs really, really slow. So yeah, Generation 5, it was decent. Again, the story I think was the best part. So I did not play the others. I played White was my first one, and then I played Black 2. So, and White and Black 2 were very, very different games. They took place in the same region, but it was 2 years apart. There was way more Pokemon in Black 2. You went on a slightly different path. There were new areas in the sequels. You went to a lot of the same places, and you had a lot of the recurring characters, but it was definitely not the same game, and it felt immediately different from the very beginning. This is going to become important later, so we'll come back to that idea. Moving on to Generation 6, my first game was Pokemon X. and it was all right. It They seemed like they were focusing more on the hey, look, it's in full 3D now, guys. Look what we can do, and less about the wow, this is a new 3D Pokemon game. They introduced some pretty decent Pokemon. The Kalos region, nothing really that great about it. It doesn't really stand out to me either. I liked it a lot more than Unova. It definitely got rid of the aspect of how Unova felt like you couldn't really go anywhere besides where the game was telling you to go. There was a lot more open world things. You could do a lot more exploration. So the region was, more open, but at the same time, they took away everything good that they had done with the story, because the story in Generation 6 is no better than the one from Generation 4 or Generation 3. It's basically the exact same story. Bad guys want to wake up a legendary mascot to destroy everything, and that's it. And Lysander was so obviously the villain from the get-go that there was no point in even trying to make him not the villain. And just so many of the gym leaders were forgettable, and Generation 6 is when the game started to make that downfall to being too easy. A lot of people say that Generation 6 was easy, and then they made it harder again in 7, and then 8 was not quite as hard as 7, but still decently challenging. I disagree. I think that everything after 6 has been a complete breeze. I've been playing Pokemon my entire life, and ever since Generation 6, I just haven't really been challenged at all in Pokemon. I guess I'm just getting too good at the games, or I played so much that I just know how to level up properly, and I never have any challenges anymore. I might lose a battle every now and then, and a gym leader might, beat me one time, but I never have to stop the game and try over and over and over and over again, and I never feel like there's a chance that I could lose horribly or just get absolutely destroyed like there was in Generations 4 and 5. Generations 4 and 5 were really good generations in terms of difficulty. But Generation 6, yeah, it was really easy. It was like almost insultingly easy. So Generation 6 also had Omega Ruby, which was my game of choice. And it's basically the exact same game as Ruby, just with 3D graphics and not in 60 frames per second. But at least they now have all of those same features that were missing from the Generation 3 games when the Generation 3 games were as far as it went. But now they have this physical special split. Now they have the 3D. Now they have the TMs that don't break. And it was in 3D, and they had a lot of other cool things. But it was still the same story from the get-go. And Mega Evolution was lame. I never really liked Mega Evolution. I don't know why Game Freak keeps trying to add new gimmicks. We don't need gimmicks. Just make a good game, and that's all we need. Like, Mega Evolution, I think, was my second favorite, because the thing with Dynamax and Gigantamax is it kind of combines the two aspects of the last two generations' gimmicks. The transformation aspect of Mega Evolutions, and the making the Pokemon look different on the outside, and then the superpowered one-hit KO move aspect of the Z moves from Sun and Moon. I really did not like Z moves at all. I never thought it was a great idea. It was just, they're too situational. They could turn the tide of the battle. You never know when they're going to come. I played the entire game without ever using a single Z move because it was really just stupid. So Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing adds the same two things together, because when you're in your Gigantamax form for 3 turns, you use a superpowered up move that is basically the same thing as a Z move, except you don't have to have a crystal to do it. And Gigantamaxing makes you bigger, but it also changes your form, just like how Mega Evolution did. But again, you don't need gimmicks to make the game good. You need to make the game good first, and then you can add gimmicks. Generation 7 has the second best story in the Pokemon franchise, in my opinion. I really did not like them at all when I bought them originally. I played my Sun version, got about halfway through the game, and just really didn't like it. Put it aside, didn't play it for about a month, picked it up again, and then all of a sudden I just got completely absorbed in it. Oh my god, I got so hooked on that game. And I beat it, and I enjoyed it, and it was great. But it held your hand every step of the way. The thing that's different about the story of Generation 7 and Generation 5 is that Generation 5 had the perfect balance between story and gameplay, and Generation 7 does not. There is a lot of gameplay. The Alola region is very easy to explore. There's a lot of open stuff. There's a lot of things that you can go back for and explore. There's a lot to explore in Alola, so that's good. But every 2 steps in the game you take, something happens, and everything comes to a screeching halt. So you can watch a cutscene that you can't skip. And then you take 2 more steps, and then another cutscene happens, and then you take 2 more steps, and then another cutscene happens. I don't know if the story was quite like. I think the story was they went for a bit more of a complicated story by having like a bit of mystery with the Aether Foundation and Lucamine, and how Lily and eventually what's his name, the brother guy there, I forget his name, the guy that has the Sil Valley. Anyway, but yeah, like the story was a bit more complicated, but it was definitely pretty good, and I really enjoyed the story for what it was. But the replay value kind of goes completely out the window when you know that you can't skip any of those stupid cutscenes. Again, the game was very easy. Hell was a complete joke of a rival. You could shoot Hell in the face, and he would just be like, "Hey man, it's okay, let's go eat some malasamas." Some pretty good Pokemon in Generation 3, lots of good combat in Generation 3, lots of good battling in Generation 3. The Alola region was pretty good, and I thought I would hate the removal of the gyms, but I didn't really. It was interesting. I don't think it would have been a worse game if they had gyms. I think they definitely could have done gyms. They chose not to. It didn't actually work. It worked out pretty good. I'm glad that they brought them back again. But yeah, Generation 7 I think is just all right. I didn't really like them more. That like the story was the most powerful thing, but you have to be but it holds your hand every step of the way, so it makes it hard to enjoy it. Now, remember how I said that Black 2 is completely different from Black? Yeah, no. Ultra Sun is exactly the same game as the predecessors. There was no point making them. The difference between like Generation 5 and the Generation 5 sequel games is that 2 years have passed. It's the same region with lots of the same characters, but you're playing as a different character and you're going through a different journey through the same region. You fight, like, things are happening in a different order. You run into different Pokemon. None of the same events happen. You go through the same places, but it's not the same game at all, and it feels different from the beginning of the game, because even the way that you receive your starter Pokemon is different. In Ultra Sun compared to Ultra Moon, it is the exact same game, just with a few different dialogue and a couple of extra characters thrown in, but the same things happen. You still have to go through everything. It holds your hand the entire way. The story is still basically the same. All of this new content that they made, it doesn't come into play until after you've already beaten the game. Like this Team Rainbow Rocket bullshit and all this other stuff that you can do, like max raids or like whatever, or like ultra wormholes and shiny hunting and all that shit. That none of that is important to me. I want the actual game to be worth something. But I played the first, like, I don't know, 2 hours of Ultra Moon, and I was like, fuck this shit. I already played this game. Why did I spend money on this game when I already own this game? So I really did not like the Ultra games at all. I thought they were horrible, and it was a complete rip-off. And now we come to Sword and Shield, the current games. Sword and Shield, I think, are fantastic. I think they have the third best story in terms of, and they don't hold your hand. The story, I think the story isn't, again, Gen 5 has the best balance. Gen 7 has a more interesting story, and Gen 8 story is not as interesting, but at least you can skip all the movies and you can skip all the cutscenes, or the cutscenes aren't like the same kind of cutscenes. Like you can just press A really fast and skip through it, all of it. But I don't think that the story was as interesting, and I don't think that it's paced quite as well. But the wild area in and of itself makes the entire game worth it. And I hope that they add wild areas to every game going forward, because even after you've beaten the game, you can explore the wild area every single day for about 5 hours, because it just takes you that long to go through the entire thing, and you'll always have fun. And you can raise Pokemon indefinitely. There needs to be a way more post-game, and I mean in the actual base game, because when Isle of Armor came out, I beat it in like one day. It was pathetic. We waited all of this time for Pokemon to finally have DLC, and the Isle of Armor has barely any content in it. Other than going around the entire Isle of Armor looking for those stupid Alolan Diglets, there is nothing to find. That's it. If you've done the main story, that's it. You can look for a couple of items, but that's not really going to help you. And all of the Pokemon that they added to the game, you can catch all of them in about one day, and then you're done with it. So that was the entire Isle of Armor. So the Crown Tundra needs to be way, 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 way bigger, or it's going to be completely pointless. If I can beat the one day, and it's not even a very long day, like I think I beat the main quote-unquote story part of Isle of Armor in like 5 hours. It was pathetically small. Anyway, this is how I would rank all of the Pokemon games. Mainline Pokemon games. I don't know if Pokemon Let's Go really counts as mainline, but for the purposes of this tier, which I did not make, it is there. So the games that I have never played are the Pokemon Let's Go games, Pokemon Black, Pokemon White 2, Red and Red and Blue, Ultra Sun. Actually, no, I did play Ultra Moon, but I did not like it at all. Oh no, wait, this is Moon, regular Moon. Yeah, no, we're good, because I didn't play, because my first one was Sun, and then I had Ultra Moon. So Ultra Sun and Moon are here. I didn't do Sapphire, I didn't do Gold, I didn't do Y, I didn't do Sapphire, I didn't do Pearl. And then, yeah, I really did not like the Ultra games at all. I thought they were horribly derivative, and all of the, like, there wasn't enough of a difference between the base game and the Ultra versions of the game. They needed to do what they did with the sequel versions to the Gen 5 games for the Gen 7 sequel games. Yeah, I really didn't like that. So, all right games, Pokemon Gen 1, Gen 6, and Gen 7 is in there. The decent games are the original Gen 2, and then both Gen 5 games. Very good games were the Generation 4 games, and the fantastic games are the Generation 3 games and the Generation 8 games. Well, anyway, folks, that's all the time I have for this episode of Slash Ranks Random Shit. Thank you for joining me. I hope you agree with my opinions. Even if you don't agree, tell me your opinions down in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you like what you see or heard, because I'm not showing you my face, but whatever. Yeah, so I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Tell me if you agree or disagree with my opinions, and take a look at my channel if you want to check out some of my other videos. I got a bunch more stuff. I got a variety show, I got a gaming show, and I got a countdown show. So I got to think of a couple more things that I can rank. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, peace out. See ya.